It wasn't the bark that mattered. It was the silence afterward, thick, heavy, the kind of silence that settles like a storm cloud before it breaks. For Logan Reed, a single father balancing another Wednesday morning with a reheated cup of coffee and his 2-year-old daughter, that silence marked the moment everything shifted. Ranger, his retired K9 partner, a 92-pound German shepherd, scarred muzzle and the loyalty of 10 men, stood rigid in the doorway. No tail wag, no curious head tilt, just stillness. His ears pricked forward, his eyes locked, his chest barely rising. Logan saw it instantly. Ranger never froze like that unless danger was near. At the table, little Ellie giggled, swinging her sock-covered feet against the booster chair. She clutched a plastic spoon, sunlight catching the golden curls spilling across her forehead as she worked through her favorite oatmeal, banana with cinnamon. Across from her, Dana, their nanny of 6 months, coaxed another spoonful toward Ellie. Early 30s, Midwest kind. Soft-spoken, always in her pale pink hoodie and jeans. Just one more bite. "Princess," she encouraged gently. That's when Ranger moved, not with a bark, but with a sudden, explosive lunge. The scrape of claws on tile cut through the room as his jaws locked onto Dana's arm. The spoon clattered to the counter. Ellie screamed. Dana cried out in shock, staggering backward. Ranger's grip was firm, steady. No tearing, no wild thrashing. "Ranger, out!" Logan's voice cracked like a command from the battlefield. Obediently, the dog released, retreating toward the pantry. Dana collapsed to the floor, clutching her bleeding arm, while Ellie wailed louder in her father's arms. For a heartbeat, everything froze again. Logan's pulse thundered. His daughter buried her face in his hoodie. Ranger only stared, not at Dana, not at Logan, but at the spoon lying on the kitchen floor. Logan's eyes followed too. The spoon wasn't just smeared with oatmeal. A faint pinkish stain clung to it, something that didn't belong. He said nothing. Outside, sirens echoed down Maple Street. A neighbor had already called for help, and all Logan could think was, Ranger never bites without a reason. The living room was in disarray. One paramedic wound gauze around Dana's bleeding arm, while another EMT crouched beside Ellie, doing their best to calm her. The toddler clung to Logan, sobbing into his chest, unwilling to let go. 2 police officers lingered at the doorway. One of them a familiar face from Logan's old unit. Their tone was respectful but unyielding. "We'll need to take the dog in for observation, Logan." "He's not some stray," Logan shot back, his voice tight. "That's a decorated K9. "I know," the officer replied evenly. "But he bit a civilian. Procedure's procedure." Ranger sat quietly by the fireplace, gaze fixed on Ellie. No growl. No fight. When Logan clipped the leash onto his collar, the shepherd didn't resist. But just before being led out, Ranger turned his head toward the kitchen table, like he was leaving something unfinished. As the animal control van pulled away, a hollow ache twisted in Logan's stomach. Dana had been their nanny for half a year. Ellie adored her. Background checks showed nothing questionable. Still, Logan trusted Ranger's instincts, and the dog had never acted without reason. Before the door shut, Logan leaned in, whispering, "I'll figure this out, buddy. I promise." Inside, Ellie sat curled on the couch with her stuffed turtle, eyes red from crying. Logan's mind snapped back to the spoon. He returned to the kitchen, wrapped it in a paper towel, and studied the oatmeal bowl. At first glance, nothing seemed off. But the scent, faint, metallic, wrong. His chest tightened. He scraped a small portion into a Ziploc bag. Not for the police, but for someone he trusted more. If this story gripped you, subscribe to Heroes for Animals for more true-to-life stories of loyalty, courage, and the powerful bond between humans and their 4-legged protectors. Every watch helps keep these stories alive. 2 hours later, Logan parked outside a discreet veterinary toxicology lab. Dr. Marlene Jacobs, an old contact from his Army days, took the bag without hesitation. She didn't ask questions, only raised an eyebrow when he admitted it came from his toddler's breakfast. "That's not what oatmeal's supposed to smell like," she murmured, already sliding a sample under the scope. Logan didn't stay. He needed to be with Ellie. Driving home, his old habits returned, checking mirrors, scanning corners, never letting his guard down. Ellie napped in her crib when they arrived. Dana had gone for further treatment, sending Logan texts about trauma and wondering if she'd lose her job. He ignored them. He couldn't answer. because in his gut, he knew Ranger wasn't at fault, and the real question wasn't why the bite happened. It was what was in that oatmeal. The next morning, the house was still, too still. Logan sat at the kitchen counter, staring at the plastic evidence bag. Inside it, the untouched bowl of banana cinnamon oatmeal that started it all. The odor had faded, but something about it still left a sour twist in his stomach. He hadn't really slept, not with his little girl clinging to him most of the night, and certainly not knowing Ranger was locked behind bars in a kennel stamped dangerous. He refused to accept it. He poured a cup of black coffee and let his eyes drift to the framed photo stuck to the fridge. Taken 3 years earlier in Mosul. Ranger was younger then, dust-caked and alert, a purple heart patch stitched to Logan's handler vest. Their bond had been forged under fire. The dog had dragged Logan out of a collapsed building during a drone strike. There was no way Ranger would snap for no reason, but the paperwork existed. The bite was logged as a Level 3 incident. Deep punctures, marked bleeding, yet no nerve or tendon damage. That was enough for the county to slap a 10-day quarantine on Ranger and call for a behavioral evaluation. Logan read the form twice. Nowhere did it mention a possible poisoning, only the clinical line that chipped at him. Unprovoked aggression. By mid-morning, he found himself at the county shelter on Ridgeway Drive, a tired block of concrete and chain link where the air smelled of bleach and damp fur. He checked in, flashed his veteran ID, and waited until they cleared him to see Ranger. The shepherd didn't plead or make a scene. He rose when Logan entered, ears forward, tail low, and leaned his full weight against Logan's shins like a silent question. Logan crouched, whispering promises he'd made 1,000 times on patrol. A shelter tech, mid-20s, tattoo sleeve, practical, hovered nearby. "He's been calm," she offered, almost apologetic. "Ate a little when he came in, didn't growl. But he hasn't touched his water today. Can I bring him something from home? A blanket? A toy?" Logan asked. "Procedure," she said. "It would need to be checked in." Off the record, she admitted most dogs that bite in the shelter are tense and reactive. "But your dog's different," she added. "There's a focus to him. He isn't lashing out." Ranger leaned into Logan's hand as he scratched behind the ear, but the dog's eyes kept flicking to the far kennel wall, toward the whine of a frightened puppy. Protective, alert, not a loose cannon. Something had set him off, and Logan intended to find out what. Then his phone buzzed. Dr. Marlene Jacobs. He picked up without hesitation. Her voice was low. "I ran a GCMS on the oatmeal," she said. "There are trace amounts of ethylene glycol." Logan felt the floor tilt. Antifreeze. A tiny dose, not enough to kill at once, she explained, but consistent with early-stage poisoning. Repeated exposure could lead to kidney failure in days, especially dangerous for a small child. The sample had been fresh, she told him, likely taken within an hour of contamination. It was still warm when he dropped it off. "Can you write this up?" he asked. "I can," she said, but be careful. A toxicology report helps, but if this goes to court or Child Protective Services, you'll need motive and proof someone put it there on purpose. He hung up with the world spinning slow. This wasn't speculation anymore. Ranger hadn't lost his mind. He had acted to protect Ellie. That night, Logan walked the scene in his head, replaying every scrap of the morning, searching for the thread that would tie it all together. The smell had faded, but it still left a sour twist in his gut. He hadn't slept, not with his little girl clinging to him all night like a shadow, and certainly not knowing Ranger was shut away in a kennel stamped dangerous. He refused to accept it. He poured black coffee and glanced at a photo taped to the fridge. Mosul, 3 years earlier. Ranger was leaner then, dust-caked, sitting close to Logan's boot while a purple heart patch was sewn onto Logan's vest. Their bond had been forged under fire. The dog had hauled him out of a collapsed building during a drone strike. There was no way Ranger would snap for no reason, yet the paperwork existed. The incident was logged as a Level 3 bite. Deep punctures, significant bleeding, but no nerve or tendon damage. That alone triggered a 10-day quarantine and a behavioral evaluation. Logan read the form twice. Nowhere did it mention possible poisoning. Instead, the bureaucratic phrase "unprovoked aggression" sat on the page like a stone, and it dug at him. Later that morning, he found himself at the county shelter on Ridgeway Drive, a tired place of concrete blocks and chain link where the air smelled of bleach and wet fur. He checked in, showed his veteran ID, and waited until they let him back. Ranger didn't make a scene. No barking, no whining. Just rose to his feet with ears forward, tail low, and leaned into Logan's legs as if asking a quiet question. A shelter tech, young, tattoo sleeve, efficient, hovered nearby. "He's been calm since intake," she said, almost apologetic. Ate a little, didn't growl. But he hasn't touched his water. Logan asked if he could bring a blanket or a toy. Policy meant items had to be checked in. Off the record, she admitted something that made him uneasy. Most dogs that bite in the shelter are anxious and reactive, but Ranger showed a different focus. Protective, not chaotic. He kept glancing toward the kennel wall where a small puppy whimpered. Even under stress, he was still guarding, not lashing out. By mid-afternoon, his phone buzzed with a name he hadn't heard in years. Dr. Marlene Jacobs. She didn't beat around the bush. "I ran a GCMS on your oatmeal," she said. "Trace amounts of ethylene glycol." Logan's world tilted. Antifreeze. A tiny dose, not enough to kill instantly, she explained, but consistent with early-stage poisoning. Repeated exposure could cause kidney failure within days, especially in a small child. The sample appeared fresh. It had likely been contaminated within the hour and was still warm when he dropped it off. She could write a formal report, she warned, but if this ever went to court or to Child Protective Services, he'd need more than toxicology. Motive, proof that someone had put it there deliberately. He hung up with the room still spinning. This was no longer speculation. Ranger hadn't lost his mind. He had acted to protect Ellie. That night, Logan replayed every detail of the morning, frame by frame, searching for the thread that would tie it all together. He glanced from the clipboard back to Logan. "I ran the full panel like you asked," he said softly. "Ellie's kidneys are functioning within normal range, but her creatinine levels are a bit elevated." Logan's chest tightened. "What does that mean?" "It suggests early stress, not failure, but it lines up with what you told me about antifreeze exposure." A shaky breath escaped Logan. "So she really ingested it?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "Most likely a small amount, maybe more than once, or just enough to show up in her labs." Ellie sat swinging her legs, licking her lollipop, blissfully unaware that her life was now reduced to enzyme counts and chemical traces. Logan's fists clenched at his sides. "Do you want me to file a hospital report?" Dr. Feldman asked. "If this escalates legally, her medical records will be critical." "I already gave the DA a statement," Logan answered, jaw tight. "But yes, record everything," Feldman jotted notes onto the chart. "For now, keep her hydrated. We'll recheck her in 48 hours. If she spikes a fever, call me, day or night." Logan gave a firm nod. "Thank you, Doc, for taking this seriously." Feldman's eyes darkened. "A child this young doesn't accidentally end up with antifreeze in her body. That alone makes it serious." Later that day, Logan turned down a quiet street at the edge of town, stopping in front of a small rehab center tucked between a yoga studio and a dog grooming shop. White siding, a narrow porch, and a hand-painted sign read, "Kindred Spirit, Animal Wellness, Behavioral Evaluation, Rehabilitation." Through the glass, Ranger rested calmly on a foam mat, a slow-blinking tabby curled against him. His body was still, not anxious, just observant. A woman in her 40s crouched nearby, gently tossing bits of dried liver in an arc around the dog. "Approach. Pause. Release," she coached softly. Ranger stayed put. She stood and came to the door. "You must be Logan Reed," she said, shaking his hand. "I am. And you're the evaluator." "Melinda Ka," she replied. 20 years as a behaviorist, I worked with military handlers at Fort Benning. Now I focus on trauma cases and misunderstood heroes." She glanced at Ranger with a faint smile. For the first time in days, Logan allowed himself a small smile. Inside a consultation room, Melinda flipped through a folder. "Ranger is alert, responds well to commands, and shows no aggression toward strangers, even after the incident. No obsessive behaviors, no excessive prey drive. Honestly, I don't see signs of instability." Logan leaned forward. "So the bite?" "Protective instinct," she said firmly. "He wasn't attacking. He was defending your daughter. The bite was controlled. No mauling, no repeated strike. Just a warning." Logan rubbed his face, relief flooding him. "I needed to hear that. The county has him flagged as unpredictable." "They're wrong," Melinda replied. and I'll testify to that under oath." Through the window, Logan watched Ranger lie down beside a child-sized stuffed bear. His voice dropped. "He's not unpredictable. He's the most dependable soul I've ever known." That evening, back at home, Logan opened the mailbox. Inside was a plain envelope, no return address. He tore it open. A single typed message stared back at him. "He's not wrong. Look inside her purse. She was never meant to stay this long." Logan's pulse hammered. The note had to be about Dana. After tucking Ellie safely into bed, he went to the hallway closet. Inside sat a small storage bin. Dana had left in a rush when she was taken to urgent care, her pink hoodie still on the hook, her purse shoved beneath the umbrella stand. He hadn't touched it. Not until now. The bag looked ordinary enough. Faux leather, a little overstuffed, the kind of purse any mom might carry. Inside, Logan found Target receipts, half a granola bar, some gum, an expired Chicago bus card, and a prescription bottle. His stomach tightened. The name on the label wasn't Dana's. Patient, Malene Carter. Medication, fluoxetine, prescribed 2 years ago. Instructions: 1 tablet daily for anxiety and depression. Pharmacy, Northside Women's Correctional Facility. Logan froze, staring at the name. Carter, not Dana. At the very bottom of the purse, he pulled out a brittle piece of newsprint, folded into quarters. The yellowed headline read, "Child Neglect Case. Ends in sentencing. Mother convicted of deliberate starvation." The mugshot showed a gaunt woman with tangled hair and hollow eyes. Not Dana, but the resemblance was undeniable. Same cheekbones, same nose. Hands shaking, Logan searched her name in the county records. Within minutes, the truth lit up his screen. Malene Carter, 35, served 18 months. Released early on supervised parole. Current whereabouts unknown. His throat tightened. Dana wasn't Dana. She had been living under an alias, with a history of child abuse. Logan gripped the kitchen counter, struggling for air. This woman had been in his home, feeding Ellie, taking her to the park, bathing her. And all the while, she had hidden who she really was. He snatched his phone and called Detective Erica Dunn. "We've got a bigger problem," he said, voice flat. "The woman in my house wasn't Dana Blake. Her real name is Malene Carter." A pause. Then Erica's sharp voice. "Are you certain? I have her pill bottle and a newspaper clipping from her purse. Sending you photos now." "This changes everything," Erica said. "If she assumed a false identity around a child, that's a felony. Add her prior conviction and a potential poisoning charge, this case just escalated." "Good," Logan muttered. "Where is she now?" "She claimed she was with a cousin for recovery, but that could be fabricated. We'll issue a bolo immediately." "Logan, listen, don't try to find her yourself." But Logan didn't answer. His eyes drifted down the hallway, toward Ellie's bedroom door. The crushing guilt pressed down like concrete. He had invited danger into their lives, and only Ranger had seen what he couldn't. The next morning, Logan returned to the rehab center. Melinda met him at the entrance. "The county reviewed the report," she said. "With your test results and the evidence you provided, they're moving to clear Ranger's record." Logan crouched beside the dog. His voice dropped to a whisper. "We're almost through this, buddy. You were right all along." Ranger pressed his nose against Logan's knuckles, then nudged his face gently. And for the first time in days, Logan felt it. Just a flicker, but enough. Hope. He would keep Ellie safe. Logan had made himself a promise. He would clear Ranger's name. The world needed to know the truth. The so-called dangerous dog wasn't the real threat. The true danger was the woman who had smiled at his child while secretly slipping poison into her food. And she was still out there. 2 nights later, Logan was pacing the floor in front of Ellie's crib. The clock read just past 2 a.m. A small, owl-shaped nightlight glowed softly in the corner, painting faint shadows across the walls. Ellie slept soundly, curled into herself, thumb tucked near her lips, her tiny blanket pulled under her chin. But Logan couldn't rest. Not while she remained vulnerable. Not while Malene Carter, the woman who had lied about her name, her past, and nearly ended his daughter's life, was still free. Every creak of the house made his shoulders tense. In his hand, he held Ranger's worn K9 vest, the one with the faded American flag patch and the stitched warning, "Do not pet." It still carried the faint scent of cedar wood and fur. Ranger hadn't failed that night. Logan had. By mid-morning, his phone buzzed. Detective Erica Dunn's voice came through, steady but grim. She never went to her cousins. She used another fake name at urgent care. Phones off. No credit card activity. Logan's jaw tightened. So she disappeared. "We've got bolos out in 3 states, Erica said. "Her aliases are flagged at hospitals. Someone will spot her sooner or later." "What about the DA?" Logan asked. "He's reviewing your nanny cam footage, the toxicology reports, and her criminal file. Attempted poisoning of a child. Identity fraud. Parola violations. He's building a case." "How did she even pass the background check?" Logan muttered. "Private agency out of Kansas," Erica explained. "Her legal name change slipped through because it wasn't registered federally. She changed it in Arkansas right after release and moved west. She's not the first to game the system." Logan's grip tightened on the phone. "So she could have been anywhere, with anyone's child. And this time," Erica's voice softened, "she picked yours. Stay close to your daughter. We will find her." That afternoon, Logan walked into the county animal shelter with a steadiness he hadn't felt in days. The paperwork was signed. Ranger was finally coming home. Melinda Caney had fought for him during the review, her testimony combined with the toxicology evidence leaving no room for doubt. The committee had ruled unanimously. The quarantine was lifted. The words "unprovoked aggression" were struck from Ranger's record. When the kennel door opened, Ranger didn't rush or bark. He simply stepped forward, ears lowered, tail swaying gently, and pressed his muzzle into Logan's palm. "I missed you too, buddy," Logan whispered. As they made their way toward the truck, shelter staff gathered near the door.
One clapped quietly.
Another gave a cheer. Even the receptionist, who had once muttered that Ranger looked scary big, offered a smile and handed Logan a treat. "Glad he's going home," she said softly. "He's not like the others." Logan had sworn to himself he would restore Ranger's name. The world needed to know the truth. The dog branded as dangerous was never the real threat. The true danger was the woman who had smiled sweetly while poisoning his child, and she was still out there. 2 days after learning Dana's real identity, Logan was pacing the carpet in front of Ellie's crib. The digital clock read just past 2 a.m. A soft, owl-shaped nightlight glowed in the corner, painting faint shadows across the room. Ellie slept peacefully, curled up with her blanket tucked under her chin, thumb near her mouth, but Logan couldn't find peace. Not while she remained at risk. Not while Malene Carter, the woman who had fed his daughter poisoned oatmeal and lied about who she was, still walked free. Every groan of the house made his nerves coil tighter. In his hand he clutched Ranger's worn K9 vest, the one with the faded flag patch and the stitched warning retired, "Do not pet." It smelled faintly of cedar and fur, reminding him of one undeniable truth. Ranger hadn't failed. He had. By late morning his phone rang. Detective Erica Dunn's voice was firm. She never made it to her cousins. Gave urgent care a fake name. Phones off. No credit card activity. Logan's jaw locked. So she disappeared. "We've issued bolos in 3 states and flagged her alias with hospitals. It's only a matter of time." "What about the DA?" Logan asked. "He's reviewing the nanny cam footage along with the toxicology and her criminal file. Attempted poisoning of a child. Identity fraud. Parola violation. He's building a case." Logan's voice hardened. "How did she even pass the background check?" "A private agency in Kansas," Erica explained. "Her legal name change slipped through because it wasn't registered federally. She changed it in Arkansas after release, then moved west. She's not the first to exploit the system." Logan stared out the window. "So she could have been anywhere. With anyone's kid?" "This time she chose yours," Erica said quietly. "We'll find her. Keep your daughter close." That afternoon, Logan returned to the county animal shelter, his signature steady as he signed the release forms. Ranger was finally coming home. Behaviorist Melinda Caney had fought hard for him at the hearing. Between her professional evaluation and the toxicology evidence, the board voted unanimously. The words "unprovoked aggression" were officially erased from his record. When the kennel door swung open, Ranger didn't bark or leap. He simply stepped forward, head lowered, tail gently swaying, and pressed his muzzle into Logan's hand. "I missed you too, buddy," Logan whispered. As they headed for the truck, shelter staff gathered by the entrance. One clapped softly, another gave a cheer. Even the receptionist, who once muttered that Ranger looked scary big, smiled as she handed Logan a dog treat. "Glad he's going home," she said warmly. "He's not like the others." "Possibly," Dr. Feldman admitted. "Her blood work shows the beginnings of kidney stress. Keep her hydrated, keep her temperature down. If she worsens overnight, bring her in first thing." Logan hugged Ellie tighter, his chest tightening. He couldn't lose her. He wouldn't. At the hallway's edge, Ranger stood watch like a sentry, ears pricked, eyes fixed on the little girl. Since returning home, he hadn't looked away from her once. He refused meals until Ellie smiled at him, curled up outside her bedroom at night, and followed every step she took. That dog knew more than any human could, and Logan trusted him with everything he had. Near midnight, a rumble shook Logan awake. A low, deliberate growl from Ranger's chest. Focused, warning. Logan's hand went instinctively to the pistol in his nightstand. Ranger stayed crouched low, pacing alongside him as he crept toward the back door. Logan peered through the kitchen window. His heart stopped. A shadow moved beyond the fence. A figure, blond, hooded, heading for the shed. His pulse thundered in his ears. Quickly he thumbed out a text to Detective Dunn. "She's here. Alone at my house." He slipped out the side door, Ranger tight to his leg. Together they rounded the corner. There she was, Malene Carter, a flashlight in her hand, something pressed against her chest. Glass? Cloth? Bottle? Logan didn't wait to see. "Freeze!" His voice cracked the night. "Hands where I can see them." She spun under the porch light, pale and frantic. "It's not what you think." Ranger surged forward, not biting, but blocking, his body planted between her and Logan. His lips peeled back, teeth flashing in warning. "I wasn't trying to hurt her," Malene stammered. "I came back to explain." Shut up!" Logan snapped, rage simmering in his voice. "You poisoned my daughter. You lied your way into my home." "I didn't mean—" Ranger's bark split the night like a gunshot, silencing her. Then, tires on gravel, red and blue strobes washed across the yard. Two cruisers skidded to a stop. Detective Dunn stepped out, hand on her holster. "Step away from the shed, Malene, now." The bottle dropped from Malene's hands as she slowly raised them. Within moments, she was cuffed and read her rights. Logan stood in the wash of squad car lights, chest heaving, every muscle trembling from the adrenaline. Ranger sat calmly at his side, gaze steady, the storm in him finally quiet. For the first time in days, Logan let the words escape, his throat tight. "You saved her life, boy. You really did." By dawn, the air inside his home finally felt breathable. Malene Carter was behind bars. Ellie slept safe in her crib. And Ranger, the dog once accused of being dangerous, snored thunderously in front of the fireplace, stretched out in exhausted peace. Logan sat slumped on the couch, rubbing at the dull ache behind his eyes as the adrenaline drained away. Sleep still wouldn't come. His phone buzzed with constant updates. Erica confirming Malene's arrest. Early reports trickling to the press. Logan ignored them all. Instead, he opened the full nanny cam archive. Until now, he'd only watched the damning clip. Malene stirring something into Ellie's oatmeal. But tonight, with her in custody, he wanted the full truth. Every second, every clue, every sign he had missed. The recording stretched back 2 full weeks. Logan sat frozen, watching frame after frame. Every morning she arrived the same way. Pink hoodie, purse on her shoulder, coffee cup in hand. She hummed nursery songs, bounced Ellie on her hip, folded laundry, prepared meals. To anyone else, she looked like the perfect nanny. But the unease Logan had carried now made sense. In one clip, she stood at the window, staring into nothing for 10 minutes, while Ellie stacked blocks behind her. In another, her lips moved while she washed dishes, not singing, but whispering. Then came the moment that twisted Logan's stomach. 4 days before the poisoning, she pulled a white envelope from her purse, tipped the powder into a measuring spoon, and stirred it into Ellie's juice. Logan had been sitting in the same kitchen, answering emails, barely 6 feet away, and yet he had seen nothing. She'd hidden her malice in plain sight. But Ranger hadn't missed a thing. Later that morning, Logan sat across from Detective Erica Dunn at the precinct. She slid a thick folder across the table. "Her real name's finally tied to the system," Dunn said. "We're pulling her psych history. There's a case file out of Illinois. Post-conviction therapy. 3 sessions before she stopped attending." Logan flipped the pages. Words leapt at him. Attachment disorder, paranoia, hostility toward maternal figures. She hated mothers, he muttered. Or maybe, Dunn replied quietly. She hated what she thought mothers should be. People like her don't need a motive. They just need access. Logan's jaw tightened. So how'd she end up here? She applied through a Kansas-based domestic staffing agency. Background came back clean under the alias Dana Blake. After her release, she reinvented herself. Arkansas driver's license, new social, new resume, even forged references. Logan leaned back in his chair, rage burning hot beneath his skin. She planned this. Dunn didn't respond. Instead, she slid another file across. This was found in her motel room. Inside was a battered composition notebook. The cover read, M. Blake, Daily Notes. Logan flipped it open. His pulse hammered as he scanned the entries. Ellie trusts me now. She doesn't cry when I put her down for naps. Logan always leaves at 8:15. The dog watches. He doesn't blink. He knows I'm not the bad one. They never saw what I did for her. This time I'll do it right. The notebook's final pages were worse than the rest. Words scribbled over themselves. Whole lines slashed out. Frantic sketches of cribs, children's hands, and a dog's face with the eyes violently scratched away. Logan shut it quickly, nausea rising in his throat. Back at home, he crouched beside Ranger, pressing his forehead to the dog's. You saw her for what she really was, he whispered. Ranger only wagged his tail slowly and nudged under Logan's arm, as if to say it was nothing at all, just his duty. But Logan knew better. Later, Detective Dunn called with the update he'd been waiting for. The DA's filed 4 charges: attempted poisoning, identity fraud, child endangerment, and parole violation. Bail denied. She won't be walking free. Logan exhaled, whispering a thank you. There's more, Dunn added. In her motel fridge, we found another container of oatmeal. Same brand, same antifreeze traces, labeled with Ellie's name. She wasn't finished, Logan. Ranger stopped her. Not guilt. The words hit like ice. By the next day, headlines swept the town. Retired K9 uncovers poisoning plot against toddler. Local news stations ran the story, complete with a photo of Ranger sitting proud outside the shelter before his release. Calls poured in. Neighbors, strangers, even schools and businesses offering donations, dog care, and thanks. For the first time in weeks, Logan felt the weight lifting. That Saturday, he took Ellie and Ranger to the Riverside Park. Sunlight glimmered on the water. Children squealed on swings while parents lounged on blankets. Ellie darted across the grass, clutching her stuffed turtle, Ranger padding loyally at her side. Logan sat back on a bench, watching. His daughter's laughter, the guardian at her heels, and the fragile peace he thought he'd lost forever. A young mother approached, her son in tow. "Are you Logan Reed?" she asked. When he nodded, she smiled. "What you and your dog did, that's real courage." Logan's eyes softened. "He's the hero, not me." She glanced at Ranger. "He saved her life." "Yeah," Logan murmured, his voice tight. "And probably mine too." On the way back to the truck, he overheard Ellie whisper to her furry protector, "Good boy. I love you." Ranger licked her tiny hand, sealing the promise between them. 2 weeks later, the house on Sycamore Street felt like home again. The air carried the scent of cinnamon muffins instead of fear. Ellie slept soundly. Logan drank his coffee while it was still warm. Even the creak in the hallway no longer set him on edge. Most of all, he'd begun to believe in peace again. Thanks to the dog the world once branded dangerous. Then came the call from the district attorney. Malene Carter entered a guilty plea. All charges, no trial. She read everything. Testimony, toxicology, your statement, even the footage. And she knew she couldn't outrun it this time. Logan's breath caught. The sentence? 25 years. No chance of parole until at least 15. She'll never touch another child again. He glanced down at Ranger, stretched in a sunbeam by the back door, eyes half shut yet always alert. Logan's voice was steady. "She can't hurt anyone now. That's because of you, partner." The DA's reply echoed in his ear. "You should be proud." "I am," Logan whispered. Days later, he stood in the town square surrounded by neighbors, first responders, and strangers who'd come simply to see the dog who refused to let evil win. The mayor had called it a small community gathering, but to Logan it felt more like a parade in honor of a soldier returning home. Tables overflowed with lemonade and dog toys. Kids ran around with stickers that read, "K9 Save Lives," and the local coffee shop even unveiled a limited edition Ranger blend, a bold roast touched with cinnamon. Logan stood quietly at the edge of the crowd. Ranger beside him in a brand-new vest, stitched with gold lettering, Hero, retired K9. When the mayor stepped to the microphone, the applause softened into a hush. For bravery, instinct, and the unshakable protection of a child, we name Ranger an honorary guardian of Pine County. The crowd erupted. Ranger barked once, tail wagging, as Ellie trotted forward with a small bouquet of sunflowers. She handed them to the mayor, then threw her arms around Ranger's neck. The shepherd licked her cheek, and Ellie squealed with laughter as cameras flashed. Afterward, neighbors lined up. Some just wanted to pat Ranger's head. Others shared stories of times they'd wished they'd had a protector like him. An older veteran with deep scars across his forearms stopped and said only, "I worked with dogs in Nam. They saved more lives than we ever admitted. Don't ever let anyone call him just a pet." Logan's voice caught. "I won't." That night, when the house was quiet, Logan sat on the porch with a beer in hand and Ranger at his feet. Stars stretched wide above. Honeysuckle scented the breeze. He opened the recovered notebook one last time, staring at the words. The dog watches. He doesn't blink. He knows. Logan looked down. Ranger blinked slowly, then rested his chin on Logan's boot. Not just a watchdog, a guardian. Logan smiled faintly. Tomorrow the notebook would burn. Some stories didn't deserve to survive. A week later, Logan installed a second nanny cam, not out of fear, but because he'd promised himself never to rely solely on trust again. He also accepted a part-time role teaching K9 response at the local academy. Ranger came with him, demonstrating each move with the same calm precision that had once saved a child's life. When recruits asked about the case, Logan only said, "He protected my family. That's all you need to know." Spring brought lighter days. Logan, Ellie, and Ranger took a trip into the mountains to visit Logan's sister. They fished, hiked, and watched fireflies rise like sparks at dusk. Ranger guarded the cabin door each night, just as he always had. On the drive home, Ellie slept in her car seat, clutching Ranger's old collar like a teddy bear. Logan looked at her through the mirror, his chest tightening with gratitude. Not for the end of danger, but for the strength they had gained together. Months passed. The house settled into new routines. Ellie fed Ranger one scoop of kibble at a time, singing her off-key alphabet song, looping back to A whenever she forgot. Ranger didn't mind. Above the fireplace, a new plaque hung proudly. Ranger, loyal always, protector, partner, friend. On quiet mornings, sunlight streamed across the floor, and Logan would find Ranger stretched across Ellie's bedroom doorway, silent and steadfast, a living sentinel made of instinct, loyalty, and love. Nothing would slip past him again. Not this time. Not ever. And to everyone who has followed their journey, thank you for walking alongside Logan, Ranger, and little Ellie. Remember this. Not all alarms sound like sirens. Sometimes they're quieter. A growl in the dark. A dog refusing to blink. A guardian silence that saves a life. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever seen an animal sense danger before a human could? Has your pet ever become an unexpected hero? Share your stories in the comments, and if you believe tales like this should keep spreading, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Because sometimes, the ones without voices speak the loudest of all.